So at my lowest weight, I weighed 92 pounds. And I was tiny. I'm 5'0", but I was like really little. You could see my bones. I looked very glamorous. I have a small physique anyway. I looked great in clothing. I looked like the influencers. I have a cut jawline that you can't see right now, and I'm fine with that. I looked like the influencers that talk about skinniness. Like, I really was that thin and that glamorous in a sense. And I ended up having a severe psych episode from that. So the way that I got that skinny, I was naturally like fit from doing ballet my entire life. So I did ballet for 9 years from, age 10 years old. I started late. Age 10 years old until like 19 years old, I was doing ballet, even my first year of college. And I was pretty slim, pretty fit. And then when I was about 17 years old, when I was in my senior year of high school, I started becoming very anorexic. And it started out with just fasting and restricting. And then by the time I was in college, I was literally not eating, and vegan also, and just not eating for days at a time. And also there were other disordered behaviors that went along with that in terms of restriction and things like that. I actually checked the calories on gum. Like, it was actually a thing I did multiple times during that time in my life. So I got down to a weight, and by the way, when I was losing weight, there were people around me, adults and young people and whatever, that were actively like, you look so good, complimenting me. I was already a healthy, slim, natural weight. And as I was losing more weight to become underweight, I was getting compliments from the people around me and getting more and more attention, even as someone who was already naturally slim. Okay. So and also the reason I was doing it was not about weight, not about body or anything. It was absolutely a form of harming myself. I don't know if I can say that. It was a way of expressing my rage and anger that had built up to an absolute boiling point. I had a creepy teacher in high school. There were a couple different things that were going on that really broke me, that put me into a state of like frantic, like, fuck, like, this world is terrible, I hate you. Instead of harming myself in other ways, I'm going to do this to show my anger so people know that, like, I'm not, whatever. And so it's coming from a place of rage. And I think what I want to communicate and express that I feel is very important and should be talked about is, like, it started for me. I had this desire to cause harm and to myself in order to express harm to the world. And I was looking at websites that had inspiration of models that looked thin. It was Tumblr at the time, but you could do, of course, it's on all the platforms now. There's all kinds of kind of propaganda for thinness as a desirable aesthetic or a goal, which I don't think it is. I think it's a stupid goal, quite frankly. I think it's based in horrific systems of oppression, injustice, and hierarchies that are fucking completely made up, nonsensical hierarchies. And I think it is kind of unhealthy. So what I want to communicate is basically, as I was trying to find a way to make things feel, like I could express my rage, and I was being exposed to this media about, hey, there's another way you could look, and maybe you could try this, and this is the way some people are doing this, or whatever. What ends up happening, what happened for me, is it started as kind of an interesting choice. And by the end of it, number one, I was in the psych ward because there were many reasons, but one of them absolutely was vitamin deficiency. They know that when people are depriving their brain of nutrients, it can absolutely cause psych issues. And then the second thing was, by the end of it, I was totally controlled by this world that I had created. I was obsessed, and I was suffering in a way that was unnecessary. Do you see what I'm saying? So, like, if I understood, this is mostly for people who might be going down that rabbit hole and hopefully can get out of it before it gets bad, because the consequences of this behavior in my life were so severe and so extreme. And I'm not saying if someone had warned me, I wouldn't have done it, but I think I would have thought twice. And so what I'm saying is it gets away from you. You might make these choices initially thinking this is logical, or I want to see how this feels, or like, yeah, this is a way to express myself, or even for some people it's totally about body, I want to look a certain way, whatever. But what can end up happening, not for everyone, but for many people, I would argue most people who are underweight, I think most people who are underweight are doing this and have this kind of brain where they're so deeply obsessed with it. Like, my example is, after that time, I was using a lot of cannabis, and I was going in the opposite direction, and I gained a lot of weight. And even then, I was not mentally obsessed the way that I was when I was vegan and fasting. I wasn't obsessed. It was such a freedom, like truly granting myself a freedom I didn't even know was accessible to me, to just live. And now I'm in a place where I can cook super healthily and eat super healthily and go to the gym and be present with myself and look how I look and be proud of how I look and be comfortable with myself. And I know that not everyone vibes with my aesthetic. Some people want me to be skinnier. Cool. Thanks for your feedback. I don't care, right? And in this place that I'm in now, I am literally, according to blood tests, I am healthier than I ever was before. Except when I was young. And even then, I'm that healthy now at 32 years old. It took me a decade to recover from that. What happens to your microbiome, to your digestive system, to your metabolism, all these processing components and parts of the body and systems of the body are so damaged by depriving yourself in that extreme of a way. Some people can totally live like that. I know plenty of older people that their whole life they've been focused on being skinny, and that's their lifestyle, and they've chosen that, and they're okay, they're fine. But quite frankly, I think, in my opinion, having seen that up close, that kind of mentality up close, I think it harms their relationships. I think it harms their relationship with themselves. And I think it causes a severe case of inauthenticity. I think when you're so focused on looking small, especially for women, but for men too, when you're so focused on body image and critiquing other people's body and other people's food consumption and your own food consumption, I think it creates a style of personality that is narcissistic, self-absorbed, and highly inauthentic. You're not connected to who you truly are because you have this layer, this facade of obsessiveness with being small. And for me, I will say the only, to make a counterpoint, my annoying inauthenticness is being critical of diet culture and of that mentality. I think it's very destructive, and I think it's not as helpful as we think it is. I also think being healthy, being present in your body, eating in ways that feel nourishing, good, and healthy, knowing, your relationship to movement, do what kind of movement you enjoy, dance, exercise, whatever you're capable of doing, that's also really good and beneficial in my opinion, from my experience. And having to come back from being severely unhealthy about trying to be small and being very small, it took me so long to recover from that, physically, mentally, and emotionally, in ways that it actually made it harder and took longer for me to become healthy. And I understood I have to give myself the leeway to find a middle ground and not be healthy for a while, if that's what it takes. And that's what happened for me. I think another aspect of this that I want to add in is substance use and addictive tendencies, because in my opinion, from my perspective and in my experience, the way that I related to not eating when I was in that illness was very addictive. It felt like an addiction, absolutely. And so I think there are also so many people who deal with other addictions and other forms of addiction that, use that as a way to justify it, because in our culture and society, especially in the United States, but in general, but mostly in the US, we have this hyperfixation on smallness, being little or being slim as like health. And it's just not healthier. Like, they've proven this time and time again. There are skinny people that are very unhealthy, and there are larger, more overweight people that are very healthy, that have good blood work, that have good, health metrics. And it's really about how are you caring for yourself and how are you caring for your body. But really what this is like, for me, what I really want to express is how horrific that experience of focusing on smallness was for me, and also how it got out of control. Like, I didn't have control by the middle of it. Like, by the time I was really little, like where I was really skinny, like, I had no ability to modulate my relationship to fasting. I didn't have that. It was addictive. It was scary as shit. It was weird. It was unhealthy. It was obsessive. It got in the way of my friendships. It got in the way of my schoolwork. It ended up fucking up my mental health. And I really think that's something that skinny influencers don't fucking talk about. Like, they're not going to tell you that their days are consumed by not consuming. That's what they think about all day, every day. Most of them. And some of them don't. And that's fine. Like, that's also real. And I totally want to give credit and, an affirmation of the reality of people who naturally are very, very skinny. I was naturally slim, so it's not like I don't understand that from my whole life growing up. But I think people who push it as a lifestyle, or people who value that attribute in a significant front-facing way, where it's like, this is one of my main traits, that's usually obsessive and unhealthy. And like I said, there are also people who can do that their whole lives. That's one of their attributes. They can live a long time even. There's old ladies who are like that, right? And old men. However, it can damage their relationship to themselves and others. Now, this is something I've made a previous video about. Nuance is the key to everything. Yes, there are counterexamples. Yes, there is intricate multitudes of additional information to this whole discussion, right? However, I think this is a missing perspective, is people saying, like, I'm very healthy now. Like, physically, I'm healthier now than I've almost ever been, simply because I'm finally recovering from all this nonsense that I had to go through. Not just that, but other stuff that was related, but not, other stuff as well. And I have, like, physical health problems and disability and all this shit going on in my life that is challenging. And being as healthy as I am now, which I've never gotten to experience before in my entire life, it's been very challenging and fucked up in other ways. And so I'm very, 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 very grateful and thankful. Like, my gratitude is infinite. I truly could not be more grateful for how I'm doing at this point in my life and what my life is like and who I am. And I'm also acutely aware, like, I wish more people understood that it is not worth it to get obsessed with being skinny, bro. Like, it's not what you think it is. It's false advertising. That's, I think, what makes me mad about it. It's like, also, not that many people think it's that cool. Like, the people who are attracted to that aesthetic and archetype are, like, a very specific style of indoctrinated person. Like, it's not as impressive as the people who are into it want you to believe. It's like, okay, it's like people who drink or people who have dogs. It's like, there are subcultures for fucking everything, dude. There's a subculture of being obsessed with being skinny, or being obsessed with people who are skinny, And it's just not that fucking cool. And it's not everyone. And so what happens, and this is very normal, but what happens is, and of course this is totally dependent on where you live, which is something the internet never fucking wants to talk about, which is where you live directly impacts all of your belief systems and how your life goes. Why don't we talk about that? It's like, people are just making videos from different fucking cities. You think that doesn't impact your point of view? You know what I mean? So it felt very different for me. But I think an important point, and something I've learned in recovery from being in that mental state and other things I've been through, is the more that a person can find their core sense of self, find your core sense of self. I've had to find who I am no matter what city I'm in, no matter what country I live in, no matter what state I live in, no matter who's around me. You have to find your truth and your core sense of self. And that just takes time. But if you get distracted by nonsense goals that are harmful for the body and brain, it's going to actually set you back. And it might prevent you from ever getting there and knowing your true self and your true core sense of self, or it might just delay it. And it might be a lesson you needed to learn. Cool, whatever. But like, be safe. Because if that nonsense like takes your time and energy in life, and like, let's say things go really wrong and you like, you know, the most deadly mental illness is anorexia. That's literally the one that most people, anorexia nervosa, I don't know if I can say that, is multiple times more deadly than major depression. Guess how many times more deadly? Anorexia is 4 times more lethal of a mental illness than major depressive disorder. And so you're playing with fire. Like, don't do it. You know what I mean? And I thank God that I survived what I went through. Dude, when I went into the hospital for psychosis because my brain was not okay, which I strongly believe is related to the fact that I was very underweight and very nutrient deprived and fasting all the time. And in my first year of college, like studying biology and Arabic, like, I don't know, have a fucking apple, bitch. Like, what are you doing? Anyway, but when I went in, they had to rehydrate me with like IVs and shit. Like, that was terrible, dude. And I just think, again, there's a couple primary points. One of them is it's false advertising. It's false marketing. It's this idea of like, oh, it'll be fun. Just look small. Do this diet. It's like, okay. But then what happens when 5 years down the road, you're still doing that? And that's your focus. And you haven't worked on yourself. And you haven't figured out who you are or what you want in life. And your career isn't going where you want it to. And your health is not very good because you're restricting yourself. And it's like understanding the cost. Because the real problem with the obsession with smallness is you don't know how long you'll be stuck in it. I got out of it because there were multiple reasons, but like I was hospitalized. That's how I got out of it. I was psychotic for months on it. That's how I got out of it. Like, not everyone gets out of it. And then maybe you'll wake up 75 years old and you still give a fuck about not eating too much. And all your friends give a fuck about not eating too much. And you're stuck in your little world of bullshit. Don't do that to yourself. You're sacrificing an authentic relationship with yourself and with the world and with loving people who have loving intention for you. Like, and then the other piece of this is, I think, and also just trusting the process. But the other piece of it is like, I think one of my biggest beliefs in general, and one of my greatest like things I hold near and dear is it truly, if you can get through it without having something happen to you, like, that is to say, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical illness, disability, whether it's external variables, whether it's homelessness, like I've been through that as well for 2 times briefly, short periods of time, but it was fucked up. Like, regardless of what it is that you're going through, abusive relationships, which I've also been in, physically abusive relationships, like, the goal, the primary thing, in my opinion, is get through that shit. Survive. Make it through and get out the other side and then heal and start living your life again, because you just can't give up. You can't, like it's so important that you physiologically bring your body and mind through to the other side of whatever challenge. And there's a lot of challenges in life. I don't care how good your life is. You probably are surrounded by alcoholics. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter how beautiful you think your life is. Celebrities be offing themselves all the time, dude. Like, you know, and also, even if your life is horrific and terrible, stick with it, bro. Come through the other side. Like when I was out on the streets homeless. There are people who got out of that shit and there are people who didn't. And everyone deserves to strive for a good life. Or if, you know someone who, or if you've gotten into this world of trying to be little, trying to lose weight. Like, And again, there's a difference between being healthy and like doing something for yourself and being obsessive and doing it for the aesthetic. Skinniness for the aesthetic is a bullshit goal. That is a stupid goal, okay? And you can have that goal. Do what you want. But just know, you don't know when you can get off the ride. You don't know when you'll be free of it. You don't know when it's over. Some people get stuck in that until the end of their life. Some people pass away from it. So this is really to say two things. Number one is no matter what you're going through, be strong, find your core center, be loving to yourself, find your goals and who you are and what you want, how you want to contribute, how you want to show up for other people. When you get through your challenges, you can help other people get through those challenges. That's what I want to do soon, hopefully, That's one, get through what you're going through. And then the second thing is, if you're on the precipice of making an unhealthy choice, don't make the unhealthy choice. Like the point that I'm making is to say, if you're unsure and you're like, wow, should I really try to start only having cabbage soup or like whatever dumb, like not dumb, but just like whatever vapid thing is on your mind, like, or like, should I try this substance or whatever it is, right? Like, understand that when you're on the precipice of a new choice, you can choose the healthier option. Be conscious. Be aware. Have your awareness have access to the information. Be informed. Make informed choices. You're a consumer because we live in a capitalist hellscape. So when you're trying to like decide like, ooh, this influencer looks so cute in her size 00 pants, which I've been that size. It wasn't fucking worth it, bro. It wasn't that fun. It wasn't even about, like, it was easy for me not to fucking eat, honestly. That wasn't the hard part. The hard part was the obsession and the kind of, like, gross vibes. Not necessary. Okay, anyway, whatever. And I understand, again, it's regional. Like, if you're living in Hollywood, it's going to feel different than, or Beverly Hills, it's going to feel different than living in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? Like, you create, and in either place, depending on your friend group. So make friends with healthy people who are connected to their authentic selves. And something that I'm obsessed with right now is like, you also have permission to be a private person. You don't have to tell people like the beauty of your own life. Like, I'm so thankful that I have loving friendships with people who value being healthy and authentic within themselves and like aren't obsessed with being skinny. Oh my God, what a gift. What a fucking gift. My gratitude, again, is infinite for the people in my life. And I don't necessarily have to like go out of my way. Like, if I'm, talking to someone who seems to be interested in skinniness, which I don't think is an interesting value at all. Especially because, again, I'm healthier now than I was then. Like, I know how my body feels in both situations. But if I'm talking to someone like that, I don't necessarily have to go out of my way to be like, I'm so glad my friends aren't like you. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Or say it in a nice way or try to flex about it. It's like, you don't have to prove anything. And that's all just lessons that are learned over time. That's the other thing that I think most people, for some reason, just like have completely lost sight of on the internet. Is like, I'm sorry, your age is real because it's the amount of time you've lived on Earth. It's not about age. It's about, I have 32 years of doing this shit already. I have 10 years of recovery from bipolar. I have 10 years of recovery. I have 10 or 11 years of recovery from anorexia. Like, time is a real variable. We can't just be like, oh, you can know everything when you're young. It's like, yeah, you can, but you simply won't have as much experience. And there are people who have a ton of experience who haven't learned anything. Like I said, there's people in their 80s who are still fasting because they're still obsessed with skinniness. And they don't understand that that's just keeping them separate from who they are. And you can still be skinny and not be obsessed with it. That's the other thing that kind of pisses me off. I'm like, and even if you can't and it's a struggle for you, like, fine, but like, accept yourself. Find your happy medium. Find your balance point. Find your truth. Your truth is not going to be found on an influencer's page. Ever. Like, it's not to say don't enjoy the junk food that's the internet. Don't enjoy the brain rot or whatever. But it's to say, like, following someone else's life goals is ultimately not going to connect you with your most significant, authentic, core truth. That's something you have to figure out over time. You have to find that for yourself. And again, my caution is, you have to find your own truth. You have to find your core, authentic reason for being and your goals in your life. And you can only discover that over time and get through the challenges and come out the other side safe and sound as best you can. And if you're on the precipice of making an unhealthy decision, just understand that shit could derail you. That could take you off your course to finding your true self for decades, okay? So it's not worth it to indulge a capitalist fantasy if that's not who you are. That's a pretty good last line. Thank you for being here. Please like, comment, and feel free to share this and subscribe if you enjoyed it. If I know you in real life, please stop watching my videos. I would rather you not, quite frankly, unless you desperately need it and also have bipolar, in which case I love you. Cool. And yeah, for anyone else in recovery from, this disorder stuff, this eating disorder stuff, it's like, fuck yeah, good job. I'm so proud of you. Just a little message of hope. It took me 10 years of having really bad physical health, and I still have like challenges and issues, but like the aspects of my health that I have control over are great at this point. Like I have good, I'm doing good. So it takes a long time, but it's worth it. Yeah. Trust the process, trust the journey, trust yourself, and learn how to trust yourself. You know what I mean? Like, just let yourself trust yourself. Build that trust over time. Resilience is a blessing, Okay. I really hope this helps. I hope this was helpful and felt healing and encouraging and empowering. That's what I hope. So, thank you for being here. Good luck. Stay safe. Be healthy. Be blessed. And find your purpose. That's such a funny thing to end on. Find your purpose. Good luck.